Mhm.
Hey everybody, I'm Francesca Maximé. Welcome to today's edition of the ReRooted podcast here on Ram Dass's Be Here Now network. You can learn more about me at maximeClarity.com. That's MAXIME Clarity, CLARITY.com. I'm here with pianist Miki Yamanaka. I am thrilled that you're joining us here today on the ReRooted podcast. It's been one of my um, efforts to kind of also include the joyful and the creative arts aspects of the ways in which healing can happen and transformation can occur, and the ways that spiritual practice and mindfulness practices, which is what this podcast is a little bit rooted in, um, is part of it. You know, meditating and all of those kinds of things. But that also practicing is very much a practice, meaning practicing your musical
Right.
instrument. And so I just want to really welcome you, Miki, to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about, anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm excited.
it's great. I didn't meet you, but I first heard you when you were doing a guest appearance with Emmett Cohen's Monday night
Hmm.
jazz group, and I had Warren Wolf on the podcast the other day, and I'm going to be taping Emmett soon himself. I think he's in Russia right now, playing over there. And I don't know. I guess maybe some of the things that I would like to start with is your tell us how you came from Japan to
Hmm.
come to the United States as a jazz pianist, a musician, a woman, all these intersections that I just think are fascinating and come together. And you live in Harlem, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So just tell me a little bit about your journey in terms of being a musician and how you got here to the US and New York.
So I was born and raised in Japan. I was taking classical piano lessons like other Asian kids, whatever. It's a thing. It's a really thing. And yeah, my mom forced me to go to, piano lessons. I did never liked it, but I guess I was good at it in terms of like listening and then like learning music from ears. And then like I got to know about jazz. I was in a brass band in junior high school, and they play jazz a lot. So I got to know more about like Count Basie's style of music, like big band and stuff like that. But I never improvised or anything. So my like starting point is very late, like compared to all the kids in like New York City and in the United States. Everybody starts in like middle school, like they start improvising and like learning Oscar Pearson and like Charlie Parker and like, all those like greats. I never did that. So I majored science in college. I was doing completely different things, but I gradually started playing more jazz. In college in Japan. And then I had this opportunity to make a little money just playing piano as a side job. So like I got some money. So I decided to come to New York for a week. And then I saw a concert of Cedar Walton, the piano player. And then that blew my mind. I was like, oh, this is great. So young Mickey decided to move to New York for a year just because it's so appealing. New York is awesome. And I didn't speak any English. But for some reason, like I just like told my mom, I want to be able to speak English. So like, let me move to the United States. And I convinced her really well. So I came to New York in 2012 and I went to City College to study English. I didn't
Hmm.
speak English. So that
Wow.
was the beginning. And um, and then I just like decided to go out every night to meet people, practice music, get to know more tunes and stuff like that. So I just fell in love, and I just, this became a part of my life. So I had to go back to Japan and come back here again. But long story short, I just like this lifestyle of being a musician was very natural to me. So it just happened, everything happened naturally. And I don't know, like just, I'm still here. So
Yeah, you're still
Yeah.
here and you're still playing music. And I'm so curious about this shift from like you didn't like practicing, you didn't really want to do classical, but then you liked something about jazz and the improvisation and all
Yeah,
that
I
kind of
think
stuff.
so.
Tell me a little bit more about that. It sounds like you had a natural gift, a natural ear for the music, but that just the sort of classical was a good foundation, perhaps, about a lot of
I
things,
guess
but that
so.
it
Yeah.
wasn't what that's at least what Warren Wolf said when I was talking to him, that there's a good foundation in some of that. But
Mm.
anyway, so tell me a little bit about that shift of my mom made me do this. I didn't want to do this, but now I fell in love with jazz.
Yeah, it's funny. So like my mom and my dad both love jazz. They even like went out for listening to some jazz when they're young and stuff. So when my dad had to move to a different university he teaches, um, my mom found this school that the junior high school that I went to, that they had the jazz brass band. So my mom knew that I don't enjoy the piano lessons necessarily, but she knows that I like music. So she was like, oh, maybe you want to try this instead. So then like I really became like, oh, I love this feel. I love this, like just the style of music so much more than like, oh, like just practice one thing. And like, it's more freedom and like more joy in the music. I just found more joy in the music. I love classical music now,
Yeah,
but back then jazz was more appealing to me because
yeah.
of this like feel, like danceable music and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I love that. I love what you're even doing with your hands there, sort of gesturing and sort of,
Mm,
the improvisation and the creativity and things like that,
yeah,
which is so interesting because from a perspective of, like I was saying before about practice, whether it's spiritual practice or athletes, of course, they have to
yeah,
repeat the same movements and
yes, indeed.
strength training in different ways and mind their diets and, different things like
Hmm.
that, that there's spiritual practice, musical practice, athletic, mind, body, soul, spirit, all these different things, you know, that the freedom comes to do all these fun things that you want to do when you're grounded in a certain degree of discipline, which, from at least my understanding, I don't know that I'm particularly good at it, is part of what happens when we're able to establish what they would call, one pointed concentration and just sort of
Mm,
be in a more a centered place of focusing our attention,
yeah, yeah,
that things open up,
yeah.
that more is possible there. Do you have a spiritual practice, or would you say piano is your spiritual practice?
I don't know. Food? I like to eat, so I like to cook and I like to eat. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think eating healthy and eating well is very important to human beings, like more than people think. It's
Yeah.
really important eating well, like grounded. Like I'm not vegan or anything. I eat everything, but just with the healthy balance of everything, eating everything and thank every bit of things that I cook and I eat, like I consume, like I really thank them. So
Tell me about
um,
that. You're thanking them that you're consuming them. Tell me a little bit more about that.
yeah, so like I think some people have like ethical reasons that they don't want to eat meat because of this industry and stuff like that. But I know that animals and plants, they have all spiritual no spirit. They have all like spirits, like either plants or vegetables or animals or whatever. So if it comes to in front of me and like I'm about to cook them, I thank them because they were alive. They used to be alive, but they're dead. And then we all are gonna die. We were born like individually different things, but then we die and we become kind of the same thing, like ashes or like, those
Mm.
human cremations and stuff like that. But like in front of me, there are beautiful food, beautiful vegetables, beautiful meat and fish and stuff like that. I just, like I'm so thankful that I get to cook them, I get to eat them, and I get to nourish, and like, like I get to like really feel alive from that. Isn't that nice? Like, I really think that's so important to remind yourself that we're meant to live by the, the things that are already dead, but, used to be alive. That's kind of my belief, I guess. Yeah.
I love what you're saying. I really just am, and I'm enlivened by it myself, just because the whole idea of gratitude as a practice, appreciation,
Yes.
and actually making that an active part of your daily practice with your cooking. That's why I think so many people feel as though they have to be a separate spiritual person over here on the meditation cushion or at church or in the synagogue or
whatever they like. Well, I don't mind them at all, but yes, that's what I do.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is it can be integrated in ways in your life, your relationship to other things. We would maybe call it our interdependence, our causality, our causes and conditions. That yes, things are going to die, including ourselves, and that I can have gratitude and I can appreciate and I cannot have. And I can share, I can, as you're doing these things with your food, making food, I'm picturing you having people over for dinner and
I love doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's way then, we need to have a healthy body. We're playing the music, then we're nourishing other people with the music that you offer. And I'm wondering if I can find a piece of your music to play a little bit for people so they can get a taste, and then we'll come back after we listen to it a little bit. Is there any particular piece on your website that you would like to share, or should I just find something?
I can send you something, I guess so.
So tell me about the piece that we're going to look at now.
So I've been doing a live streaming series every Wednesday. Like, I just started a couple months ago, like, inspired by what Emmett has been doing. And like, I got to see the real scene. I don't have that much gear that he has, but like, I'm trying to do what I can do and to be able to make music every week with a different bass player, because my husband is a drummer, Jimmy McBride. So we just, we don't want to make it a little too crazy because of the COVID. Want to have different bass player each week. This is the excerpt of that scene, basically, that our friend Yasushi Nakamura played the bass with us that week. And Chick Corea, the great piano player, just passed away. So it was really, meaningful week to play his music. So maybe you can just get a little taste of that.
All right, let's just hold on a second and we're going to take a listen. All right, so we're going to take a listen.
I don't hear it. I don't hear it. A little bit. Yes, okay. Nice.
So I'm just going to pause there and just kind of come back to our conversation and just,
Yeah.
just really sort of name how beautiful it is that in this time of COVID that you can share these living room concerts with people and kind of bring a live jazz experience to people who may not normally go out to a jazz club, whether it's in
Yeah.
Baltimore or LA or Austin, Texas or New York. And
Yeah.
that this is really just a gift and that there's so much out there and you're
Mhm.
contributing to that. And, how has that been for you to be a musician during the time of COVID when you can't tour or go to clubs?
Yeah, it's, I didn't know this would happen ever, like what the heck? Like maybe like the 9/11 happened to New York, and some people told me New York was a whole mess, which was like, people were in grief and like sad, but like you could still go out to play music on the road, like to different country or something like that. But this is world pandemic. Nowhere you can go or you can play music. So it got me pretty depressed. It really got me dark for sure. I drank a lot of wine
Uh-huh.
every day almost. I drank a lot and I'm not proud of it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I think a
But
lot of people are dealing with coping in different ways.
yeah, but I quit smoking cigarettes. I used to smoke cigarette, but then when the COVID happened, the main thing that people were talking about was like, if you smoke cigarette, um, higher risk. And I didn't
Yeah.
want to even go outside. I'd never smoke at home. So I was like, oh, and I stopped smoking. So I just needed like a different substance of, you know, yeah, not proud, but that's how I coped with. And I listened to a lot of music though. I listened to a lot of records and CDs that I have, and like trying to be more like appreciative of what I have,
Yeah.
because we can't really go out and listen to some music and stuff like that. Because I used to do that all the time. I love to go out to listen to music, like classical, jazz, Cuban music, anything. Like I love to just be there. The
Mm-hmm.
music is the best when it's live
Right.
performance. So
Right.
it is hard. It was hard, but it's been better though. It's been definitely better. Yeah. I'm playing for people sometimes, it's like so rewarding.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah.
really sense that. But I
Yeah.
appreciate your honesty around the struggle because I think a lot of people are struggling and they're struggling silently and they're struggling in a way that's isolated and they feel as though if they're eating differently or if they're drinking or smoking or doing things differently, that they feel
Mm.
bad about themselves for that. And I just think that it's part of the journey in terms of, we can ground ourselves in various practices and you can appreciate what we have, but also sometimes it's just a lot. um, and
Yeah.
and I appreciate your honesty on that. And it's interesting, right? Because of COVID, there's also the whole thing that came up last year with Black Lives Matter movement, and we were
Yes.
talking about before we get on the call. We're taping today in March of 2021. That just last night there was 8 people that were killed, 6 Asian women in shootings at massage parlors in Georgia. And I had a client of Asian descent earlier today who was really talking about the sadness and the rage that are connected to these issues about racial violence, racialized violence. And I just didn't know if you had any thoughts about that you might want to share. Um,
Yeah, for sure. The biggest thing for me that hit in the morning was like, um, it's very sad, and like, but I don't know, like people might say different things. I don't know, this is my feelings, but when I scroll on, Instagram or Facebook, like I see people's reaction to what happened to the world, right? And then I just didn't really see too many of that about the incident. And I just couldn't believe this was real or not, because not too many people shared it. Like, it's an outrageous thing to me as an Asian woman, because I know for the fact my Asian friends who live in New York got beaten or got robbed, like since COVID happened, just like definitely more hate crimes towards Asian people, for sure.
Right.
For sure. I know that for the fact. Luckily, I haven't dealt with any so far.
Right.
But who knows? Like, I go out with my kimono on, like people can tell immediately, oh, that bitch is Asian, like they can totally hit me and like put me into the really serious danger. But I've been okay so far. I'm really thankful for that. But my friends got spitted, beaten, like really
horrible.
It's terrible. So like none of them were killed, but those women were killed in Georgia. It's very saddened, but like I didn't really see my friends' reaction so much, and that made me sad.
Are you talking about white friends?
Yeah, like white friends, or like even Asian friends. Like, why don't you speak up? Like, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you show your rage? Like, we're not good at that. Maybe we're not good at showing our sadness to like outwardly, like to public, maybe like there must be sad. They must be dealing with this everyday fear.
Right.
But we don't really speak up.
Showing the rage is against your cultural values, perhaps.
Like I don't speak for every Asian country,
of course,
but like at least as a Japanese woman, that is huge part of the culture. Women are always behind the men. Like Japan is a sophisticated, like gentle, like you don't really show your personality. That's the reason why I moved to New York too. In Japan, it was much harder for me to express my personality.
Yeah.
So my thoughts are, I'm so sad to know that happened. White man killed Asian woman. That's completely disgusting. But I just want to encourage my Asian friends and any ethnical people, including white friends, just show your rage and like be with us, like feel with us. That will be so helpful to know, like, oh, y'all are feeling with us, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm really hearing that call for solidarity, like we are in this together, like show your rage to show that you're aligned in our suffering and in our pain. And I think that's it's so ironic that so many folks who practice mindfulness or are Zen practitioners or
yeah, exactly,
it's yeah, I wonder, how that energy, there's a book, that a friend of mine wrote, Lama Rod Owens wrote a book called Love and Rage. And it's talking about sort of transforming the energy of anger and rage, really about that to a place of connection and connection with self and with others. And I think that it's so funny because I feel like the more I study about trauma and our nervous systems and the ways in which we are influenced in terms of what we decide to do with engagement and acting out for, not acting out, I mean like engaging in a positive way versus staying in a more contained way. So much of it is about safety or what we perceive as being safe. And I just wonder if the showing your rage and solidarity for some folks feels as though it's not safe, And yet at the same time, it's ironic because it also keeps in place the system that then makes everyone not safe.
I don't support that. It's just like, I hope like people can, that's, I don't know, like, at least I think that people should.
I get it. You want people to kind of shake it off and to kind of be bold. And I think that's what we witnessed last summer, right? There were
totally. That was, I cannot speak for my like Black friends, like how they felt, but like for me to be able to speak up and like show them that I am angry as well, like this is crazy. And I don't know if that is helping at all, but like that's the only thing I could show them, like, hey, I'm with you, like, let's feel this pain together, like,
right.
I don't know, just sad, so sad.
And also that there are so many systems, and it's interesting because when we talk about racism and we talk about hate crimes and we talk about violence, and we talk about trauma, there are a lot of ways in which I find people say, well, this kind of trauma and this kind of racism is worse than this kind of trauma or this kind of racism or this kind of, if it's homophobia versus sexism, or, but I'm a woman, but I'm Jewish, but I'm Black, but I'm an immigrant, but I'm, my able-bodiedness isn't centered in the way that, able-bodiedness is centered, in all these kinds of things, and that people have almost a competition. But what I'm hearing you say is that yes, there are unique and specific ways in which certain marginalized communities get targeted. And also there's a way that we can join in unity around not spiritual bypassing and skipping ahead, but in really feeling and resonating and being there, holding one another during these times.
Yes, I think that's very important. I think that is very important. Like that, I understand what you were saying about the fighting, like, oh, my pain is more, and like, or think about my pain, I definitely witnessed that conversation over people for sure. But what we can really do is like to feel together and like, we're together, holding ourselves together, we can't understand someone like dad passed, like you can't understand the feel, like it's not about the racism or any hate crimes or anything, but you cannot understand anybody else's pain. But what you can do is like hold their hands and like, all right, I'm with you. Like that's what we can do. So
no, I really appreciate what you're saying there. And it is true, right, that there are systemic things that have kept people in certain roles or with certain beliefs. And I'm curious, you mentioned your kimono, and you also mentioned that in Japanese culture that the women are kind of in the background. Can you talk a little bit more about both of those?
So like I started wearing kimono maybe a couple years ago, just like once a year, like for special occasions. But then like this summer, I realized that I have so many kimonos from my mom and my grandma, whom I've never met, my grandma, but I have my grandma's kimono, like, and like it's connecting to my culture. And I really felt like it's important to connect to my culture, even though I'm in New York. And then that it's cool, but for as a woman, like even like being in front of people, just like, hey, like look at me, like I'm playing jazz piano, wearing kimono, it's just like kind of like a little bit oh, what are you doing, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I don't know,
it caught my attention.
It's like, what are you doing? It's like sometimes good because you thought, oh, she's interesting, right? That's really cool. I really appreciate that you thought about me, like that's really good, like it's working well. But then like in Japan, if I do the same exact thing, wear a kimono to my shows and like post my photos of wearing kimonos and stuff like that, I don't know if the reaction will be the same. I don't know, I'm not sure because I haven't done it there, but not sure if the reaction will be the same. It's getting better though. It's getting better. Like the women have more power, definitely, and they're more, speaking up, and like they're working like men do and stuff like that. But then like a lot of like old systems in Japan, like they're like just to the government level, like they're 95% men and like 5% of female governors and stuff like that. It's just
Wow.
still there. It's still there. And they don't really believe that women can work the same level of like men. They really believe in that shit. So, and the women sometimes do believe that too. Because everybody else believe in that way. So I'm a woman, I should be at home raising our kids. And then, you know, like, oh, you know, I had a dream to be a musician. No, 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 you know. Definitely some of them are like that. I know my friends who used to be super killing pianist. She's like totally retired. She's my age. She's like, oh, no, 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 I don't even play piano anymore.
Wow.
I was like, wow, you were so much better than me, even, you know?
Wow.
So it's ironic, but like the culture whole, you know, the whole energy changed a person at least, you know, like,
Right.
then I just decided to leave, you know, I was like, oh, this is not good. I'm
Right.
going to leave.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. It's so interesting because we talk about collectivist cultures versus the individualistic mindset and the
Yeah.
Western way in which the individualism, the rugged individualism, that sort of meritocracy kind of mentality that has been put forward in the United States and throughout much of the Western world, and how it's kind of a false notion of being exclusively independent, as if we exist apart from everyone else. And what I hear you saying isn't so much the binary around black and white of it's either individual or collective, but that we have a connective cultural system. But I also need my uniqueness celebrated. I also need my uniqueness seen in that way. And it's interesting to hear you say this because it almost feels as though if you weren't complying, like your friend, the pianist who gave up her piano, did with what the cultural expectations were, that in many ways do take care of one another at a certain level.
Sure, yeah.
At a certain level, I would, or you tell me if it happens that way or not. I'm maybe making this up, but that there's a longing for being that unique person that you are, and that's part of why you came.
Yeah, I think the desire of mine to be the person who create music and present was more than my friend who ended up quitting. So it's just, and we talk still, you know, we still do talk. And like, she's like, oh, I watched your feed, and, you know, like she supports, and then she listens to jazz still, you know, it's like, cool. But and she's happy with her kids. Like, I don't have kids, you know. Like what I do is a lot of work, so I admire people who have kids and like do still the same level. There are out there strong women, like, kudos to you, you know. But,
I love seeing women musicians. I love I love seeing, you know, seeing that. I want to ask you a couple questions. One about how you practice, what your routine is in terms of musically, you know, what do you do? And the other question I forget, but I'll think of it. So maybe we'll start with the first one.
Okay, the first one, I don't have any specific, I do this, like saxophone players have like a long tones and like do this thing, or drummers have rudiments and stuff like that. I don't have any of that, but I just play whatever I want to play, because I'm not the most skillfully like gifted player, maybe because I didn't like practice when I was young so much, but I just like to create music, so I don't really like to practice alone. I'd much rather just call a couple friends to show up to my apartment. Hey, do you want to play a session? And then I just like play with them and use my ears. That's like my best way of practicing this music, at least.
I love what you're saying. I mean, I used to play a little bit of piano when I was young, and I started I started Facebook, and I got to the Mixolydian scales, and I said, I'm out.
Oh, I don't know any of the scales, so don't worry.
I don't know what that's about. But what I love what you're saying is two things. One is that what you're talking about, they call it ventral vagal in polyvagal theory, which is a theory on nervous system regulation that Stephen Porges created, and it's the social engagement. We talk about fight, flight, and freeze as trauma responses, where we feel as though the safety of our animal body, of our human animal body, of our mammalian body is threatened. And yet when we're in a feeling of safety, we're in ventral vagal, we're in social engagement, like you and I are now. We feel okay together. We're not feeling like something is going to happen, although it could, we don't know, but we're not feeling like there's, we're not. And so we're kind of enjoying one another. And it's interesting that you say you don't like practicing because you don't like practicing alone. I also felt that way. I wanted to be with people. I wanted to be, even if it was having someone in the room, being with me, listening to me practice, it was better than me.
Scary. That's scary.
Well, not because they were paying attention to what I was doing, but because there was another person in the room. And I guess what I love what you're saying is this is the natural flow, your ear, your gift. You're able to create and be spontaneous and improvise. And that imagination and play comes out of the safety and the connection that you feel when you're together with these other people who are the musician friends that you have.
Nice. Yeah. Sure. That's great. I kind of agree. I guess so. I never thought like that. So I'm really interested in that. Like, it's interesting to think like, do I feel safe though? I guess I do. Because like I play with my friends and stuff. That's why like I get to try things and I get to explore what I can do. So I have the, environment that I could kind of count on my friends. Like they got my back. So like they let me be me.
Right. Beautiful. Yes. They've got my back. They let me be me. Yeah. Just like when you have, you have the bass and the drums. I mean, they're there, and you can explore. And I think that's when you look at babies and you look at the tapes around, when babies come back to their mothers or not, and you look at things called attachment styles about when they're sort of learning that their mother's a safe, reliable place, or their early caregiver. It doesn't have to be their mother, but it often is. Or whether or not they are fearful about that attachment figure, or whether they feel as though they're not going to be there for them. These are things that shape us early on in terms of whether or not we feel like it's okay to make that connection. And from a practice of like mindfulness and generosity and reaching out, it's usually our fear that it won't be safe if we reach out to make the connection and the person isn't there. Or if we do reach out, that they hurt us instead of being receptive and being kind, or and I think that that's such a loss for us, that trauma. My cat is going
cute.
Yeah, it's my cat. Here, she might as well. We're having a Penny's on the podcast today.
Oh my God, so cute.
She's a little chunky monkey.
Oh, dude, I love her already.
She's soft. She's soft. She keeps me sane. But that idea that you're talking about in terms of being able to be creative out of being socially engaged in a way that makes you feel supported, I think is really important for other people, because we talk about yoga, we talk about drumming, we talk about dancing, we talk about cooking, these things that are sort of repetitive movements and sensory experiences that can help regulate us so that we're not so contracted. We're not so okay, the other thing I want to ask you, I remember, is what was it like to learn English? You said you didn't know any. I can't believe it. You're so fluent.
I mean, like I did know some, because like, we have the general English education in Japan. Like I guess like I could write things, but I couldn't understand what the hell people were saying. When I was in my English school, like second language program, I was crying every day. I remember that, because have you been in the room? Everybody else speaks this language that you kind of know, but they're so fast that it just sounds like like a magical words, like, but they're talking to each other. And you are the only one who doesn't understand. So it was so frightening. Oh my God. Oh, dude, I don't want to remember. I don't want to think about this. So. Every day. Oh, so scared going to opening the classroom. It's like, oh, another 4 hours of torture again.
Wow. 4 hours. Wow.
Yes. I mean, it helped me a lot, but yes, it was pretty scary.
I guess that's so interesting though too, right? Because I mean, I'm sure you've traveled all around the world as a musician.
I did, yeah.
And you know, you decided to move here to New York from Japan. What do people, bless you, what do people not know or need to know or find as beneficial about traveling and experiencing other cultures and people? What have you learned? Other languages?
It's just, well, what I learned is like English is very useful. I can, like, after I get to speak English, I can go anywhere. I feel like, oh, I could go literally anywhere, because a lot of people can just a little bit manage English anywhere. So that's different. But as a Japanese woman, like coming from like a specific cultural like place, going to like for example, like Europe, like when I went to Europe, like 8 years ago, like the first time after moving to New York, so I could speak a little English now, and then I get to go to Europe and like, wow, like I don't understand any of them, but because I know another language now, not just only Japanese, like I feel like my wall is like a little bit shorter. I get to try to learn. Like there was a fear for me before speaking English. It's like, oh, what if like I make mistakes? That's rude, or like, oh, that's so embarrassing. I don't want to even say anything. But then now I'm like, oh, what is there to lose? You know, let's go. You know, then like I get to fully enjoy their culture, food, and their humor, and like their dances, and like, you know, arts, and like all those crazy stuff, because I know that there's nothing to lose. So like I get to really fully enjoy it. And it's so important. Like I hope a lot of people after, you know, vaccinated and everything, people actually go out and fully embrace themselves to enjoy the culture. Yeah, I think it's important.
You know, you've said a couple things as we're kind of winding down today that stand out for me. You made it very clear, like, hey, we're all going to die. And so I'm going to be giving thanks to all the things that were once alive, the plants, the food that I eat. I'm going to prepare it with gratitude. You said, I'm going to stand in solidarity with my friends. I want more rage and more outrage around anti-Asian violence, but just any kind of violence in general, I'm really hearing you say, but specifically around, you know, speaking up and making sure that we hold each other's hand. I've heard you say that, you know, culturally as a woman in Japan, it felt like you really needed to come and kind of make your own way and make your own path. But that your discipline of whatever it was with your classical music early on and your sort of improvisation and your desire to be creative, that when done with other people in a playful, creative, safe space is your greatest joy, along with connecting with people and being really alive when you travel and meet people and do these things. And yet you were depressed, you drank a lot, and you smoked. And so I guess what I'm saying is that you're very alive, you're very dynamic, and yet you're very human.
I yes, 100%.
Yeah. I think people think that they're the only ones that are having troubles.
Oh no, everybody is. Like, look at there's definitely neighbors, everybody, just, you know, every friends of yours, they seem totally fine. They might be having the worst days. So.
Yeah. And what do you attribute this sort of shift? You said things are getting a little bit better. Do you have any sense of that? It's you know, mid-March now in 2021. For you personally, what shifted for you?
So it's funny, like the last year, 2020, March 14th is my birthday. March 14th and 15th, those are the
Happy
days
birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are the days that I played the last gig before lockdown. And then the last 2 nights, I guess not last night, but like 14th and 15th this year, I also played the gigs. And then like, I can totally feel the energy is like, the last year was going down. And this year, the energy is going up, like, because we have future gigs. We have things to do. Like now I'm still playing music with my friends. It's not like I'm like in this cave alone with my husband. Like, it's just not like that. Just like, oh, I'm seeing a new person. I'm seeing, Gano Kego is coming by tonight to play with me. It's like great cats showing up and play, support each other. And the birds, just like literally, singing. That they're singing, and just like, oh, like the whole, like the New York is a specific place. I believe that they're like longing for this energy to bloom the entire year. They're waiting for it. So I really feel the sizzling of, let's make this happen. This summer we're gonna freaking do this.
Yeah.
I feel the energy, and yes,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Miki. Okay, so tell me to let people know how they can watch you on Wednesday nights on your live stream, and where they can find out more about you.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, but mostly you can go to my Facebook artist page, Miki Yamanaka Music. Then you be able to watch the feed every week for free. And then we will not repeat a song. Like, we pick composers every week, different unique bass players in the New York City from everywhere else. So yeah, just like come join us, come watch the show. If you miss it live, that's Wednesday 6 p.m. every Wednesday, but you can watch it on my YouTube channel. Like, I always post concerts until the weekend, so you can always catch us. And even not, like, just, like, I host jam session every Monday at Smalls. Like, you can find me anywhere, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, you're everywhere. Okay, all right.
Talk to me.
That sounds good. No, I love that, and I love that, and I do feel as though this community of live stream music and watching a concert live online with other people virtually has really been a nice escape for me. I know this winter, in terms of feeling connected and enjoying in a shared experience, even though you don't have an audience the way you used to, but you have an audience out there,
Yeah, it's really nice to know, someone watching us. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for continuing to provide the music. Is there anything else you want to share before we close for today?
Well, I just would like to thank you for having me. It was such a unique conversation coming from your point of view, and like, it was really interesting for me. Then I was really glad to talk about like who I am, more about music and stuff. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us, Miki, and for sharing your light with the world. I'm Francesca Maximé, everyone. You can find more about me on MaximéClarity.com.
Yes, go
and
there.
I'll see you next time on ReRooted. All right, take it easy.
Yay! Cool.